All right. Hello and welcome. Hi, and welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to join me. I am so excited about this. If you haven't, I do invite you to put your camera on, mainly because this is all about being seen, right? Finding your voice, expressing your truth, allowing yourself to be seen. Obviously, if you're driving, that's a little bit difficult. If you're wrangling other humans, I get it. But just the invitation is there to, you know, to be seen. I'm really excited. I'm really excited about tonight, and I can't wait to dive in, get started, and share all of the things. So let's do it. Actually, before we do, and while we're waiting, not while we're waiting, but as we start, I'd love it if you could pop in, I have your names, but where you're from. Pop in where you're from. That feels really fun. A bit of a better way to introduce ourselves than just like, all right, we're in, because I don't want this to be, us and them. This is very much a joint collaboration. Renee's from the Gold Coast, Mildura, South Australia, Sydney, from Perth. Hi, Di. Melbourne. I love it. Auckland, accent from Utah. Great. Vicky from Auckland. I'm coming to Auckland in May. I'm very excited. I'm actually hosting, I'm going on a retreat, but I'm also hosting a breathwork event. So keep your eyes out. And if you aren't following me on Instagram, please do if you're interested in doing a breathwork, of course. It'll be my first time in NZ and I'm so excited. All right. As we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present, acknowledging that it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders and the traditional custodians on the land on where each of you are coming from in both Australia and New Zealand. All right. Some boring things very quickly. A little bit of housekeeping. You will notice that you are all on mute. That is purely for audio purposes. This is really interactive and I want it to be interactive. I hate just talking and not getting anything back. It feels very high schoolish. So please interact. If you've got questions, ask questions. If anything doesn't make sense, let me know. Your workbook, let me drop the link just here. So this, you don't actually need, let me pop the workbook in here. So if you just click that link, you can download the file. You won't actually need it. There is a notes section you can use tonight if you want. It's pre-fillable if you prefer to type. But in terms of the real purpose of the workbook, that's for after the masterclass. I'll be talking a lot. So if I'm going too fast, let me know. If you've got any questions, let me know. And if there is anything that you want to share on social, if there's any takeaways or anything like that, please just tag me so I can celebrate with you. My handles are just Jackie Rogash or Jackie.Rogash. Here is your workbook link. And now, just as we, kick off and because it's fun, I'd love to know who here didn't tell anyone that they were coming on tonight because you were worried about what they'd say. Oh, no one. I love that. I know that there's a lot of people without cameras on, but that's cool. Okay. Oh, Anna, me. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we have some people, right? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Again, I just forgot it was on. Well, I'm glad that you're here. The fact that you forgot that makes me even happier. So welcome. All right. So for those of you who don't know, who am I? I am Jackie Rogash. I'm a certified coach, certified energy coach, certified breathwork facilitator. I have a very trauma-informed background. I am a little bit of an expert in the trauma field from both lived experience and professional experience. I'm a mum of two humans. I'm a mum of two pets. I am a fiance, which is new. I don't often say that. I am a master of having my heart broken because that's what I used to do for a very long time. And I also used to break a lot of hearts because I was very scared about entering a relationships. And now I'm the master of conversation. And I'm so many more, so much more than just a title and who I am to other people. Um, yeah, I feel like every day who we are changes. And why am I running this masterclass? Because I realize that every single week I'm supporting my community with communication challenges. We have a tendency to shut down our hearts and our truth because of what's happened to us in the past. And I know that that's not easy to overcome, not easy at all. And for years, I didn't express myself. And now, deep, rich, vulnerable conversations are the only type of conversation that I want to have. It's something that I know isn't easy, but it is entirely possible. Something else is I'm also an expert within the domestic violence space, having both lived and professional experience in that space. While this is not a domestic violence masterclass and we're not diving into that, the skills that I've obtained through that work has given me such incredible wisdom and knowledge and insight into communications, relationships, and human beings. So I just wanted to share that. But if you have any questions about me or my calls or anything else at any stage, please, 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 please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, let's dive in. Now the fun part. How tonight is going to run. So for full transparency, I'm not going to be covering every single thing that there is to know about confidently expressing your truest desires, mainly because we would be here for the next 12 months. You would be here forever. But I also realize that you have come to this wanting to walk away with clarity, confidence, and things that you can implement straight away. So that's what we're going to do. Before I go any further, I would love to know in the chat, and I'm going to ask you throughout tonight to just put some comments in and, have a chat with me. I'd love to know in the chat, in the comments, what do you most want to get out of tonight or today? What do you most want to get out of this masterclass? And there were some things that I was originally going to include in tonight, but what I realized is that sometimes the things that we need to acknowledge and hear can be quite challenging. It can be quite confronting. It also requires us to open up and be very vulnerable. And while there is absolutely a way of working with me through the deeper stuff, I wanted today to be something that everyone is able to interact with and not feel like the pressure's on them and not feel like they have to, share something that they don't want to. So if I ask you a question at all throughout tonight or anything like that, and you're not comfortable answering, just tell me that, right? No pressure whatsoever. Tonight, we're going to break it down into 4 main parts. We're going to look at fear of judgment, constantly justifying yourself, embracing vulnerabilities, and the basics to boundaries. Again, boundaries, big topic. I'm going to speak a little bit to each of what they are and how they show up, and also possible reasons why it's a thing for you. And I realize some of it may not resonate with you, but some of it will. And I kind of get the sense that most of it will because you wouldn't have signed up if it didn't. Then there are going to be some questions for self-inquiry, which is for you to do after the masterclass. And then the best part, I'm going to give you some tips and tools to approach each of these that you can implement as soon as we get off, right? We've all been to things where they waffle and talk about nothing and we walk away kind of having no idea what we're meant to do, right? And I don't want that for you. And I hate going to those masterclasses. Also, part of the reason why I've just dived in because I've signed up to masterclasses where they've done like this slow introduction for 20 minutes and I'm like, I'm out of here. So we're not doing that tonight. We're getting into it. At the end, I'm going to open it up for questions, but I also have something very, very exciting that I would like to share with you and an invitation if you're ready to do some deeper work, right? So, Vicky, tips on communication when talking to adult children and boundaries, amazing. Being brave and actually saying how I feel, yes. To be confident in my voice and opinions without coming across rude, which results in people becoming defensive. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And, our perception of or our thoughts of what other people think of us, we never actually know whether it's true or not. More confidence in expressing my needs in a healthy way. I love it, Shane. Love it. And I love that you're like here representing the boys. So, okay. Fear of judgment. Diving right in. Let's do it. Who's ready? Give me an emoji. Give me a hand up. Give me something to let me know that you're here, that you're listening. Yes. Diane, Renee, Jess, Liz. Yep. Shane, Sky, Beck, and everyone. Yep. Jackie's giving me a thumbs up. I love it. Sandra's giving me a love heart. Okay. Awesome. I feel like I need 10 screens so I can see all of you instead of just part of each of you. Um, yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, ready, 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 ready. So am I. So am I. Okay, fear of judgment. What does the fear of judgment mean to you? Or more so, if you suffer or experience the fear of judgment, how does that show up? I would love to know. How does that show up for you? And ultimately, the fear of judgment is exactly that. It's when we worry that people will judge us negatively when we say, do, or think something, right? So anything that we do, we're worried that we're worried about what someone else will say. Obviously, we're only worried about the negative things because if we were celebrated when we expressed ourselves, we wouldn't care, right? We'd all find it very easy to express ourselves freely. And in this constant context, specifically, it's worrying about what the person that you're dating or interested in is going to think of you. Naturally, we want to impress them and we want to impress the person. And if they like, we want them to see us in a positive light, right? We want them to think that you know, we're their person if we like them. And yeah, so we go out of our way and overthink what we're saying and what we're doing. The other thing to keep in mind is when we're judged, it can leave us with a sense of shame, embarrassment, inadequacy, which then impacts our self-esteem, right? Who here has had someone judge them for something and then felt really, really bad about themselves? Yeah, yeah, everyone, right? Sucks. It's really shitty. It's really, really shitty. And, you know, we question it. We wonder what we've done wrong. We won't, we think it's us, right? And if you were reluctant to put your hand up because you're worried what we think, please know that all of you is welcome here, right? All of you is welcome here, and we want all of you here. Um, we're looking at this as a collective group of humans who have been hurt in the past and struggle expressing themselves. Me, Kylie, yep, 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 yep. Right. So why do we worry? Why do we worry about what other people think? Maybe we've been hurt in the past. And I should mention there are a plethora of reasons, right? Again, I can't list all of them. But if you've been hurt in the past, if you've been in a toxic relationship, if you have low self-esteem or don't believe that you're good enough, for some reason, you're going to worry about what other people think. If you're a people pleaser, if you don't actually know who you are, it's really hard to show up confidently without worrying about what someone thinks because you don't know who you are. You don't know who's you and what's an extension of someone else. If you constantly seek external validation from other people, lots of reasons, right? Lots and lots and lots of reasons. And there is basically, there is no one reason why you have this fear, right? And some of this would be true and some may not. Again, this is, I'm talking about a topic that is so fluid and so individual for everyone. So if I say something and you're like, that's not me, please know that I'm not saying that this is a blanket rule for everyone because that's just not the work that I do or how I work, right? Um, and also, more than one of these might be true. My fear of judgment comes from all of these and more, I would imagine. All right, so let's look at the self-inquiry. These are the questions for you to do after our masterclass, for you to dive in and really, really do the work, right? To self-coach. So what are the things I worry about most about being judged when I'm dating? What insecurities do I have about myself? That might be a tricky one. When in previous relationships have I spoken my mind and been criticized or put down? Where am I not myself when dating for fear of judgment? And what am I most afraid of when it comes to falling in love? Okay. Big, juicy questions. And some of these, if you've been doing like inner work for a while, you'll be okay with these. If you're really brand new to this realm, please don't worry. Like if you feel a little bit of discomfort or it feels a little bit awkward, please know that it's normal, right? Please know that it's normal. Um, just go easy and answer what you can is my advice. So, what is the new approach? How can we start to move forward? What can you implement right now that is going to help you move through the fear of judgment? These might vary a little bit if you're dating or whether you're in a relationship. If you're dating, everything is new. Actually, if you're dating, moving through the fear of judgment and being yourself is actually a little bit easier if you choose it to be, because the other person doesn't know any different, right? Sometimes it's harder to create change and learn how to express ourselves when it's around people that know us because they know us, right? And we care more about what they think than the people that we don't know. So, my tips, strategies, embrace who you are or your truth by 1%. So sometimes we've been hiding away in a little closet or hiding parts of ourselves away. And we're like, all right, I want to be myself. I want to be like the biggest, best version of me. And that is so overwhelming because you're going from, not showing anyone who you are to then being, you know, not completely different, but the full version of you. So to make it easier on yourself, think of one thing. What is one way or one little thing that you can do that allows you to embrace who you are, right? And then when you're comfortable with that, you add one more little thing. And then when you're comfortable with that, you add one more little thing. So maybe it's you have a friend and you both have very different views on something and you've always just gone along with it. You've always just agreed with them or, spoken as if you do. Your 1% might be to tell them that you don't actually agree and that you have a different opinion. Heaven forbid we have our own opinions, but that might be your 1%. The next one, like listen to your intuition, trust your gut, build the connection with yourself so then you can deepen the connection with other people. Ask for permission to share what's on your heart. Sometimes we struggle to say something because we're not sure how it's going to be responded or like received. Whereas if you ask something, like if you really want to say something, you just ask, can I share something with you that's been bothering me? Or can I share something with you that I really want you to know? The other person's going to be like, sure. And by doing that, you're already prepping them for honesty, right? For realness, for truth. And so that kind of removes an element of rejection or defensiveness because you're asking for the invitation, right? You're asking to share something and they're saying yes. So then you're opening the doors for that deeper conversation. Don't let someone put you down, like hold your ground. So that's easier said than done. Like there's some big jerks out there, a lot of big jerks in the world. Um, And if someone's really strong or opinionated or something like that, you know, just walk away. Walk away. Or if it is, and it's, if you're saying something that you're really passionate about, you can simply just say, that might be your opinion, but this is mine. Right. So you're just being like, I'm not letting you do this to me. This is my opinion. And that's that. Agree to disagree. Similar kind of thing. You can have your opinion. I've got mine. And show up as yourself. The world needs you. The world needs you. One thing to keep in mind here is if you don't know who you are, this process is going to take a little bit longer and be a little bit more challenging, right? It might require a softer approach as you get to know who you are. As you build your own confidence and your own self-esteem, your ability to do the same in romantic relationships is then going to improve. If you have no idea who you are and feel a little lost, the best advice I can give you is to trust your gut and your intuition, right? Just build that trust. Start practicing that self-trust. And if you listen to your intuition and tune into your body's reaction, you'll quickly learn what feels good and what is a no. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. I know that I'm talking a lot. I'm just trying to get through everything in the time because once again, I've over delivered, which I'm so happy with. I'm so happy to do. All right. As I said, any questions, pop them in the chat. Now we're going to move on to constantly justifying yourself, self-justification. What does this mean? The never-ending self-justification. Basically, when you say or do something and then spend a really long time telling them why you've done it. Sometimes it's over trivial things, like what you've decided to do, or, could be like what you decided to have or not have for dinner, right? And it's like, oh, this is, I thought we'd do this because of, blah, blah, blah. I did it tonight. I've done it twice today, actually. Once a friend asked me how I went with something that I'm going to do. And I was like, oh, I haven't actually done it yet because I've been moving and like I just kind of waffled and they're like, okay. I'm like, oh, sorry. And then similar, I did it with dinner because we've got a friend building our garage and they've got the 2 kids and everything else. And Chris came in and I'm like, oh, he's just got this for dinner. He's got this for dinner because I don't have time. And he's like, okay, babe, like, cool. I'm like, okay, I just wasted, this was a wasted conversation because I didn't need to do it. Right. So sometimes it's over trivial things, but then sometimes it's over bigger things. Why you did or didn't go to the gym, something you bought, somewhere you went. It could be something that you're just really, really worried about how it's going to be received. Could be a decision around how to spend family time. And it's that moment where you question yourself and then launch into a rant about why you're doing it. The question is, are you justifying it to yourself or are you justifying it to someone else? And that's the question that I want you to think about when you notice that you're in this like rant or this ramble. Am I doing this to appease the other person or myself? Um, so now why we do it. This is an interesting one and can be quite complex. We often think that we justify our actions because we're insecure or unsure about how we'll be received. And that can be a part of it. Absolutely, that can be a part of it. But if you've been, belittled or put down in the past, it's really normal to try and justify what you're doing because you don't want the same thing to happen again. If you've been gaslit, whether by someone else or yourself, because I know for a fact that so many of us gaslight ourselves because that's how we've been treated in the past. Your fear of judgment. Sometimes we worry about what would, we're worried about what we might, I'll start again. Sometimes we worry that what we're doing might seem wrong. And so we try to justify ourselves around it to make sure people think that we're good or that what we're doing is okay. Now, here's the kicker. Often, and this is one that gets missed, often with self-justification, it's because we have 2 different views or perspectives on something and we've got internal friction happening because we feel like we're lying. So we launch into self-justification. So let me give you some examples because I know that can kind of be a little bit to get your head around. If you believe that smoking is bad and will shorten your lifespan, yet you smoke, maybe you tell people that you're healthy. Oh, sorry, hang on. Yeah. So that might be an example. You rant on about, smoking's bad, shouldn't smoke, all of this, but then you smoke. So if someone questions you about that, you'd give them this huge story about why you do it. Or you tell people that you're healthy and you believe that you're healthy, yet you're eating McDonald's or junk food every day. And so when someone questions you, you go into the rant again, right? Or someone really irks you and doesn't align with your values, but you still hang out with them, right? And so this is going to cause friction with you because you're like, I don't actually really like you and I don't agree with what you're doing, yet here I am spending my time with you. So we can feel a lot of the time we're justifying what we're doing, we're justifying our actions to ourselves, not other people, but we feel like we're doing it to other people. Is this all making sense? Yeah. Okay, cool. And sometimes it isn't necessarily because your actions or beliefs are fighting. There's just part of you that knows that you aren't living in line with your beliefs, and if people find out, then that makes you a bad person. You might be trying to convince yourself you're a good person, or you might be trying to convince other people. Ultimately, we justify ourselves because we want people to see us in a positive light, right? Let me be clear. You are not a bad person if you think one thing and do another, right? That's your ego and your inner critic talking. You're human. We all have flaws, we all have faults, and they may not even be flaws and faults, right? And the last example of why like having two different perspectives may be something to be aware of, because you might not know about it, right? So you might be doing this and not actually have any idea that that's what's going on for you. So whatever it is, whatever the reason is that you're justifying yourself, please don't make yourself wrong for it. And again, I know that this information, and it's a lot, might feel new, overwhelming, shocking, a little bit on edge. Just go easy, right? Just go easy. You're here because you want to change. You're here because you want to implement something, and you're not able to communicate freely, and that's what you want, right? That's what you want to do, and that is why you're here. So your self-inquiry questions, again, in your workbooks. When do I feel the need to justify myself and my actions? What do I do when I start to justify myself? So just being aware of your actions. How do I feel afterwards? If I'm really honest with myself, why do I feel the need to justify myself? Do I justify myself as a way of convincing myself or other people that I'm a good person? Do I honestly believe that I'm a bad person? How do I honestly feel about myself, and what does justifying myself give me? There's a lot of myself in those questions. But you're here for you, right? You're here for you because you want to change. So let's look at the new approach. Say what you need to say and then nothing else, right? We're having this for dinner. The end. Or I had McDonald's for lunch. The end, right? Just practice, and you can do it with someone that you trust. Practice just saying the thing without justifying yourself. And you'll notice it'll take some time, right? There'll be times where you're like, oh, I just want to add this little thing in there. The invitation is not to. No, the invitation is to pause. If someone asks you something, be open and honest and answer them. Yeah, be open and honest, but only elaborate if they ask you to, right? Unless you want to and you're choosing to and you're engaging in that conversation. But just allow there to be that space, right? Space is good. Space is really good. Do an internal check-in. Internal check-in for first before speaking or actioning something. So ask yourself how you feel about what you're about to say or do. This can be a really powerful one, right? So often we move through things and we're like, yeah, we kind of live on autopilot, right? And it's like, yeah, cool, I'm just going to do it. And then we feel guilty afterwards. Just practice being like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. How does that feel to me? An example, one of my clients, I was coaching her through a decision around a job, and she was thinking about leaving. And so we just did like, I coached her and we worked through it. And she's like, yeah, no, it feels good. There was no justification needed. That was all, right? But we need to trust ourselves in order to stop justifying ourselves, and get curious whenever you do. Like, why are you doing it? What are you looking for? What do you need? How's this all feeling so far? Yeah, I've got some nods, some thumbs up. Okay. Again, any questions, please pop them in the chat. All right, moving on to embracing vulnerability. Vulnerability. Can everyone pop in the chat how you feel about being vulnerable? How do you feel about the idea of being completely vulnerable? Open. Makes me nervous. Yep. Scared. Yep. Conflicted. Sometimes okay, sometimes not. A bit scary, depends on who I'm with. Yep. Overwhelming, unsure. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Used to hate it, but starting to embrace it more. Yeah. Vulnerability can be petrifying. And I was going to talk about this, but I've actually started writing a book, and the first chapter I wrote was actually on vulnerability. And rather than creating something new and talking about it, I thought I would just read you a snippet of that chapter, if that's okay with you. Vulnerability, the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. Our greatest strength, but also the one thing that can bring us to our knees, break us. What is it to be vulnerable, to share, to be able to truly be seen? It takes great courage to share the depths of your soul, either with yourself or with others. So why is it necessary? The necessity of vulnerability comes in the ownership of self. To own your truth, speak your words, embrace your thoughts and claim who you are. To allow the connection to your inner warrior to be ignited and to let it shine through. When we hide from vulnerability, we're choosing to shut down parts of ourselves. We're denying ourselves what is needed and putting a limit on the level of connection we can create with both ourselves and others. Being vulnerable is allowing yourself to open up to what is true for you, whether it is deemed normal or acceptable, it doesn't matter. It is the art of speaking, sharing, and acknowledging what feels right and true for you. Not hiding, not pretending, not dimming your light. Your truth, your essence is what makes you you. One of my great superpowers is the ability to be vulnerable, to open up and speak my truth, to speak from the soul, speaking words that in the wrong hands could hurt me. It was not always this way. For a long time, I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable, to share, to even think of the honesty, the pain, the wounds, the love, and everything else I hid inside. I denied myself my own truth and vulnerability, and in doing so, continued to hurt myself. I carried so many wounds buried deep in my soul because of the pain was too great. When it came time, I had no choice but to be vulnerable. I realized that I had been the cause of so much of my suffering for lack of willingness to be vulnerable. Because here's the thing, when we claim our own vulnerability, when we speak our truth, not to everyone, only to those people who deserve it, it can't hurt you. You've owned it, you've spoken it. So how can it hurt you? Kind of like a secret. Secrets can only hurt us when they remain a secret. Your vulnerability is sacred. It is your heart, your truth. When you share this sacredness with others, you create a magical connection. You create a bond that can't be broken, a level of depth that once known can't be unknown. Becoming vulnerable and embracing that power it holds is no easy feat. It takes courage and determination. The truth is, most are afraid of vulnerability because they've been hurt. They've trusted before and it broke them, so they've closed off. They shut down the parts of themselves that left them exposed in order to keep themselves safe. That is the necessary part of life, to keep ourselves safe. Then there comes a time that safety no longer fulfills the need for life. So you must shift that. Vulnerability is not something you decide one day and it's done. It manifests and grows over time. You initially start scared, unsure, like dipping your toe into a cold body of water to establish whether it can handle it. Then when you realize that you don't die, that the world didn't end, that in actual fact you probably feel a little bit better than you did beforehand, you open up a little bit more. The more you practice being vulnerable, the easier it becomes. The more you stretch into the discomfort of your feelings and emotions, the more normal the comfort will feel. That is my take on vulnerability. And the first chapter of my book. You're welcome, whenever it is released. So, why do we do it? We've been here for, 40 minutes now. We've been hanging out. You know the drill. But rather than me suggesting or making suggestions about why you struggle with vulnerability, I want to throw it over to you. I would love to know in the chats, why do you think you struggle with vulnerability? Why do you think you struggle with vulnerability? You're welcome, Diane. You're so welcome. Fear of rejection. Yep. Scared of being rejected. Yep. Conditioning that expressing emotions wasn't safe, fear of rejection and abandonment. I've had it thrown back in my face or used against me. Yeah, it's a big one, Joe. Don't want to be hurt. Past relationship. Yep. Thank you all for being so vulnerable. Thank you. Renee, having your words, feelings, having your words, feelings being joked about or being told I shouldn't feel that way. Yeah, that's a big wound. That's a big wound. Possibly many reasons. One big is rejection sensitive dysphoria. Yep. Because I have, and people haven't understood me or I've been misunderstood. Yeah. And I want to celebrate each of you for being vulnerable right now because you have shown up. And what you've all written in that chat is probably one of the most vulnerable things that you could ever share. And I wonder how it feels in your body having shared that with us, having shared it, knowing that you are held, knowing that you are seen, and knowing that we want to see you and we want to know you, right? That's what vulnerability is, and that's how powerful it can be when we embrace it. So some self-inquiry questions. I'm actually not going to read through them because of the time. Again, you have them in your workbooks. They're on the screen. You will get the replay. I just, I know that you can read them. So there are a bunch there, and they're big and they're deep and they're beautiful and they're going to support you. So moving forward, what's the new approach? Vulnerability is a fucking superpower. When you are able to be vulnerable, you are potentially one of the most powerful people in the world, right? It opens you up to everything. It changes your life, right? And we have this stigma because society sucks. Not everyone, it's a very big generalization, but we are made to believe that we shouldn't be vulnerable. We shouldn't be too sensitive. We shouldn't be this. We shouldn't be that. And it's just rubbish, right? Even my partner, he struggles with my vulnerability and my sensitivity. Like I cry very easily, but I know that that's what makes me who I am. My vulnerability is a superpower, and your vulnerability is when you choose to let it be. When you decide that how you feel matters. That's the kicker. How you feel matters. I could go on. I could go on. I could very much go on about this big pep talk, but I'm not going to. If you think about how your lack of vulnerability is limiting you, where the boundaries are. So if you think about your life and you know that, you've shut the door here and you've shut the door here and you're only so vulnerable in there, imagine how much more expansive your relationships and conversations would be if you were vulnerable. Imagine how much more expansive they would be. And also, what are the reasons why you should be vulnerable? How would allowing yourself to be vulnerable support you? Honoring that most of us have been hurt. We have this real fear living inside us. But what would change if you let yourself be vulnerable? Some more inquiry there. Does anyone have any questions on vulnerability? Is there anything that wants to share? No? Okay. All right. Moving on to boundaries. And I love boundaries. I love them. Again, I could do a whole masterclass just on boundaries. Sorry, Vicky, feel heard that I'm going to be okay. Love that you embrace your sensitivity. My dad used to tell me to stop crying. Yeah, my partner does it to our sons and I yell at him all the time. I'm like, let them cry. We talk about emotional regulation and oh shit, briefly sidetrack. We had a conversation the other day. So I have a stepson. My partner has a son who doesn't have very good emotional regulation. And I said that to him and I said, that's because you and his mum don't have any emotional regulation. He goes, how's your emotional regulation? I said, mine's excellent. He goes, you cry all the time. I went, that's part of regulating my emotions. And he was like, what? Like it was just, that is all part of it. That is all part of it. And I want my kids to be able to regulate themselves, especially the 3-year-old. We're in the height of tantrum season. Um, yeah, old school mentality. Don't cry, wait, don't be soft, all of that sort of stuff. It's rubbish, right? It is rubbish. So boundaries. What are boundaries? What do boundaries mean to you in the chat? To be technical, boundaries are the limits and rules we set for ourselves in relationships. It's what we're a yes for, what we're a no for. And they're an incredibly powerful tool and something that should feel empowering. But I also totally get that it doesn't, right? Hands up if you struggle to set boundaries, or give me an emoji reaction. Yeah, some are okay. Yeah, I'm like scrolling through the list, so I don't have the grid view, so bear with me. Um, hang on, where's my notes? Setting expectations for myself and others. I used to struggle. Staying within your morals and values. Hard to keep them. Yep, I'm getting better at it. Depends, kind of my boundaries, and I disappear. Okay. Okay. So why? What's the why do we struggle? Why do we struggle to set boundaries? Does anyone want to share? Trying to keep the peace. Don't want to offend someone. Yeah, hello people pleasers. Hello people pleasers. And there is nothing wrong with being a people pleaser. Don't want to look bad. Yeah. Yeah. So it comes back to that fear of judgment, right? Fear of judgment. People pleasing. All of those. Because it's hard. It can be hard. Wanted to be liked, fear of conflict. Yeah. Now here's a way of thinking about boundaries that often gets missed. So often we think about boundaries as things we want or don't want other people to do, right? We think about the ways in which we're going to protect our energy, put our walls up, guard ourselves, and shut down. But in fact, boundaries are the things you are going to do, right? Your boundaries have absolutely nothing to do with anyone else. And that's the part that we forget, because we're like, right, this is my boundary. And they're like, they're crossing my boundaries. They're not, they're not doing what I want them to do. It's not about them. It's about you. You are the one that implements your boundaries. You are the one that either engages or disengages in certain conversations. You are the one that chooses not to be spoken to in certain ways. You are the one that chooses how to spend your time, right? Now, you might say, you might set a boundary around conversations. I'm not going to engage in a conversation if you speak to me like that. And they might ignore you and continue speaking to you like shit, right? It is then you that needs to disengage, right? It is you that then sets that boundary, sets that expectation. So it's one thing to say, my boundary is, you're probably not going to say that. Going to be like, please don't speak to me like that. I don't want to talk to you if you're going to speak to me like that. And then they keep doing it. And then so often we turn around and we're like, oh, they're just like abusing my boundaries. They're not listening to me. Maybe they're not, but what you do next matters. So that's when you walk away, you disengage, you shut down that conversation, or you do what you need to implement your boundaries, right? How uncomfortable does that feel for anyone? Or does that kind of like make things a little bit easier? It's interesting because we do expect other people to do it. And, sometimes it's like, I laugh when we're looking at, if you've been in a long relationship or with kids or, whatever, if things have always been a certain way and you decide one day that things are going to change, just because you've made that decision doesn't mean that other people are going to like do it straight away, right? We need to build on that. This is the same as boundaries, and it makes it easier. Yeah, of course it makes it easy because it's like, oh, actually, my boundaries are all about me. My boundaries are something that I get to change. I get to implement. I get to stick to. Yeah. Again, I realize that sometimes we're going to be in situations where we can't do that, but for most of the part, we can. All right. So, why do we do it? Having a lack of boundaries or poor boundaries could happen for so many reasons. Again, like everything that we've spoken about tonight, so many, and not dissimilar to what we've spoken about previously. What I see time and time again is we have a multitude of reasons. We have poor boundaries or no boundaries, but underneath it all, it's because we have poor self worth. We don't believe we're worthy or good enough. We are people pleasers, we're perfectionists, we, have fear of judgment. So we don't have boundaries because we think if we set boundaries, it makes us difficult, makes us challenging, makes us the problem child. Jackie, I walk away now, usually cry and disengage completely. Okay. All right. So we can build on that, right? So the self-inquiry questions. What is my relationship to setting boundaries? Where do I struggle? How do I feel about expressing and communicating my boundaries? What needs to change to see boundaries as a positive? And how would being able to express my boundaries support me? That's the biggest question. How would being able to express my boundaries support me? And then your approach. Take time to connect with why your boundaries are important to you, right? Implement them slowly. Don't be like, all right, these are all my boundaries and I'm doing them all right now. That's overwhelming and just awful for your nervous system. Just be like, okay, what's really, really important to me right now? Implement them slowly. You're going to have some solid, hard boundaries that it's like, no, like he shall not pass. But then there will be other softer ones that kind of, can take a back seat for a little while. Remember that it's up to you to put boundaries in place and lean into how supportive and nourishing boundaries are, right? Okay. In just a moment, I'm going to open it up for questions. There is one thing so if you have any questions, get them ready. You can either speak to me or you can write them in a thing, but there is something that I want to share. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen because I want to see your faces much more than I want to see a screen. Hi, everyone. So nice to actually have you all like on a screen instead of like scrolling. If you saw me looking at the side, it was because I wanted to see everyone. I actually hate doing slides, but I feel like I know that it's really supportive for people. So here we are. You've got me. You've got my face. So what I wanted to share, I have created a brand new program that is all about relationships, and it's called Reignite Love. I'm going to drop the little link in here for you to check out. It's also going to be on the replay email as well. Ignore that description because that is not it. Just click the link. I've noticed that a lot of the coaching I've been doing has been around relationships. And what I know about relationships is that often the work starts with ourselves. In order to have an amazing relationship, we need to do the work on ourselves. There's parts of us within us that need to be shifted or seen or moved through in order to call in that dream partner. And that is why I created this. Reignite Love is a 6-week group coaching program that will help you move through your dating fears and doubts so you can reignite that spark and quest for love. From day one, we are diving in. There's no fluff with me. If you're new here, there's no fluff, my friends. Each week, you will receive a module on the specific topic that's going to be delivered in bite-sized chunks for you to work through at home. And then we're going to have a coaching call every week where you get my full support on anything that you want. And the topics that we cover and are going to cover are amazing, but deep, right? It is all in that link. When you check it, if you check it out, all of the modules that we're going to be covering are in there and they are good. Here's the catch. Well, not a catch. Bonus time. I should do that. So like flashing lights. The first 2 people to join will get a 45-minute one-on-one with me. So the first 2 people to join will get a 45-minute one-on-one. And the next 5 will get 2 weeks Voxer support from me after the container finishes. So basically, we go through the 6 weeks together, and then at the end, you have me in your pocket for 2 weeks. Unlimited support, whatever you want. That is where we get to implement the magic and get that extra support. I know you've imagined what it would be like to be with someone who truly loves you for you, but you haven't been able to call in that person yet. So, what if you could build the confidence to put yourself out there in a way that allows you to be truly open to giving and receiving love? What would it feel like to truly be ready to invite the love in that you so deserve? That is what I want for everybody. That is the space that this is going to create. And I'm excited. I am so excited to share more, to bring this to life, and to do this deep work because it is deep. And I'm not one of those, you must love yourself before you can love someone else. I think you can be on the journey to self love and love at the same time. I am a big believer that our internal environment has to match our external. So if you have no self worth and you sabotage your life, you're likely going to sabotage your relationships, which is why I created this. So the link is there. It will be in the replay. I would love to have you in there. As I said, the first 2 people to join will get a 45-minute one-on-one with me, and the next 5 will also get 2 weeks support. With that being said, I'm now going to open it up to questions. Does anyone have a question about anything that we have covered tonight or anything else? I know that at the start, I'm going to scroll back. You wanted some support with, let me just find it. Vicky, communicating to adult children and boundaries and being brave to actually saying how I feel. So does anyone have, is Vicky still here? Vicky's still here. Who has a question? Does anyone want support, want coaching, a question from anything that I've shared tonight? A question about anything. I'm here for it. You can raise your hand, you can speak. What if we're already in a long-term relationship? More diving into yourself and what you want. In terms of like how to communicate if we're in a long-term relationship, is that what you mean? Yes. Okay. Um, Communicating, it's always interesting when we're in long-term relationships and changing the dynamic because we realize and identify that something needs to change, and we obviously realize that we're unhappy or we're not able to express ourselves. But sometimes our partners are oblivious. It's kind of like if you start the personal development journey and they don't. You start to change and do all these things, and they're like, "Who are you? Like, what just happened?" Right? Um, but it's around just starting the conversation. Whether it's dropping, "Oh, hey, I saw this today," or "I learnt this today," or, "I want to share something with you," or, finding a way to open the portal of communication and build that connection. My, do I say fear? It can be harder when we've been in long-term relationships to, well, it should be easy, right? It should be easier because it's like, right, no worries, thank you, Shane. Um, it should be easy. We should just be able to speak, say what's on our mind, but we can't because we worry about what they think, what they're going to say, that kind of thing. I think until you just need to start small and start being more vulnerable with them, like embracing the vulnerability piece, which then opens up for the rest. But it's like doing it in an environment that supports that, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know and I'll like elaborate on that one. Beck, how to start the conversation. I'm a bull out of the gate and want an issue addressed in person. How do I start without being blunt? You can simply say, "Hey, can I talk to you about something? I've got something that I want to share. Can we talk about that?" Um, I think communication, especially if it's something big, needs to be done in like mutually, what's the word? Mutually doable time, right? It needs to be not convenience, a wrong time for everyone, right? It's like if you think about it, you come home and you've got something and your partner's there and like if there's kids there or whatever, and it's like, hey, I've got this thing and I need to talk to you right now, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, and they, depending on what they're doing, they might get caught off guard, like really preparing them for the conversation but just asking them if you can talk to them, but just pausing, right? The world doesn't end if we pause for a second, would be my advice there. There's nothing wrong with being blunt when you actually say what you think, but it's just getting them prepared and opening up for that invitation. The invitation is, hey, can I share something with you? They say, sure. And you go, cool, let's do this. Yeah. Um, Anyone else? Vicky, do you have any questions about, I don't know, we didn't really cover it on here, but I'm happy to answer questions around communicating with adult children or anyone else at all. No worries, Beck. Thanks. All right, my loves. Please know that I am here. If you have any questions after this, please feel free to reach out to me. You can send me an email. You all have my email. If you don't follow me on socials, I'm on Instagram more than anything else. But if you're not on Instagram, that's okay. I'd love to support you beyond this. So please don't feel like, please, if you have a question that you don't want to raise in this group, please know that you can ask me, right? I would love to answer you, support you, and help in any way that I can. I can't wait to dive into those prompts. The prompts are juicy. The prompts are juicy. They're possibly like some of the best journal prompts I've ever thought of. And I'm like, oh, that's a good one. All right, my loves. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I've spoken a lot of words, and I know that it's a lot of information to consume. The replay will be out shortly. As I said, if you have any questions whatsoever, let me know. But also, if you are ready to invite love in or re-spark that connection, Reignite Love is going to be such an incredible conversation. And I'm so excited to share it all with you. So I will speak to you all very, very soon. Thank you for being here with me live. I love you and I'll see you soon. All right. Bye. Vicky, I've just seen your question. If you're still on, Vicky, okay. Vicky, if you want to stay, let's just do it. I'll stop record. Hang on.